The Blokebusters podcast is a proud member of the Pod Bros Network.
You can find us as well as other fine shows such as
Sarcasm City,
That's Delightful,
Worst Millennials,
The Ectoplasm Show,
and Late Night Gamers at podbros.com.
Now get ready to sit back and enjoy another episode of the Blokebusters podcast.
Tonight's story is somewhat unique and calls for a different kind of introduction.
Police gone off! Today we are canceling the apocalypse!
Wait a minute. You ain't heard nothing yet.
And this is?
Lilu Dallas Multipass.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
Houston, we have a problem.
Have you tried turning it off and on again?
Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room.
Now, where was I?
Welcome to episode 102 of the Blokebusters podcast. I'm Brian.
And I'm Paul.
And today we will be talking about Blade Runner 2049.
Yes.
Timely as ever, as is the habit of the Blokebusters podcast.
Yes, very much so.
A long-standing tradition. But before we get into all of that, real quickly, let's let people know where they can find us.
Yep, sure. Well, again, we're just going to try and keep it relatively short here. Is that most important places to find us really are on Twitter and Instagram. For the most part, that's where we're kind of most active, and that just search Blokebusters, you'll find us there. And also go check out podbros.com, because we're on there as well as all the other great shows. So please do go check it out.
We have a nearly 3-hour movie to talk about, so we're trying to move this along.
Yes. We'll try and be slightly less.
Yes, that was my goal as well. Let's see if we can do 30 seconds for every minute.
All right.
I think we can even do better than that.
Probably.
Let's hope, yeah. All right, so, Paul, I think I have an idea of these numbers, but how much money did this damn thing cost? I think I've heard this before.
All right, well, obviously directed by Denis Villeneuve, and apologies because we apparently mispronounced that on the previous.
So apologies to all of our French and French-Canadian listeners.
Yes.
New and old.
So, my aunt, if she listens to this. But yes, this film, it made... Oh, no, it didn't... Well, it did make some money, but the budget was $150 million, the production budget, the announced one. And it made worldwide in the box office $259,239,658 US. So technically, if you're going with the stereotype of double the production budget for full marketing, it would be at a loss here.
Yeah, even if you didn't take that into account, I think it still underperformed for
what they wanted.
What
definitely.
The expectations were. And real quickly, before we get into like our general feelings, I did want to kind of pick your brain, and I have my own opinions on it too, as to why this didn't do well. I mean, we're gonna get into it. No spoiler here. I love this movie, but I think there was a lot of things against it. The biggest glaring thing, I think, when people look or picking out a movie, that 2 hour 43 really puts a dampener on things. Yeah. And I mean, it sucks up your day, especially people with kids, people that are trying to make the most out of a day off. Things like that. So that I thought was number one, but also the nature of a 30-year-old sequel. And then also the other thing that really struck out for me, this is such a niche genre, subgenre at least.
Yeah.
Yes, of this sci-fi noir. I mean, Blade Runner, we'll touch on the first film here and there, but that first film is really kind of defined a genre, kind of created, and there is no comparison, like, for this mission of making a sequel. The comparison is like making another Blade Runner. Like, there's nothing that compares to that. So the responsibility of that, and what I thought was very well executed, that's a lot to ask. So you're mainly getting the fanboys and a few interested parties. So I wasn't really surprised. I was disappointed that it didn't do a lot better, because I think this is a gorgeous movie. It's a word I'm going to be using a lot. Apologies. But yeah, I don't know if you had any feelings on that.
Well, no, I definitely think that the biggest problem with this is, obviously, the original was pretty much a cult classic, I would say. It kind of fits that definition. And the problem with cult classics is that they become so popular after they've been in the cinema. So I think what's going to happen is, what I'm hoping is that the studio kind of knew this would happen, that it wouldn't make a huge amount of money in the box office, but that the DVD sales, the digital sales, Blu-ray sales, I think that is what they were aiming for, because when it comes to a cult classic and then trying to make a sequel out of that, it's going to be the same thing. You are, like you said, you're going to get the diehards that go and see it, and some diehards are going to have hated this film. I mean, some diehards are going to love this film.
Yeah, as our fanboys are wont to do, you can never make them happy. It's either an exact copy of what was done before, or it's too different.
Yeah.
It's never it's never in between.
Yeah, I want something that's exactly the same, but isn't the same, and...
Force Awakens is just a New Hope.
It's like, did you like A New Hope? Yes.
Okay, so shut up.
Like, but I don't want to watch A New Hope again. Really?
Final comment: no Jar Jar in that movie. Okay, there.
But yeah, I am slightly optimistic that the studio assumed that this would happen, so they're probably not going, well, we're not going to do this again.
Yeah, and I mean, it's it was Warner Brothers, right? They can take a little bit of a loss.
Just a little bit.
They're fine. Yeah,
they're not going into bankruptcy anytime soon. But
not unless we find out something awful about some people running the place. But
although even so, they would then just oust that person. I don't think.
Yeah,
I think having the Harry Potter films in their catalogue is gonna keep them going for a long time.
More than likely. So, as I was kind of saying, we're getting into now kind of just general thoughts here, but if you're new with us, we do talk about all parts of the film. I like to bring that up every time, just so if for whatever reason you haven't seen this, you don't want anything spoiled, we will be doing that. So, you have been warned.
Yeah, it's perfectly understandable if you haven't seen this film yet. Slightly less understandable for me as to why you would listen to it.
Yeah, this is one of those when I get around to it movies for anyone else that isn't like a diehard fan or really. I mean, because you had just seen it recently for the first time.
Yes, right? I saw Blade Runner a few weeks ago because you lent me your copy.
Right.
Thank you very much.
I did not need the other thanks on air, but I appreciate it.
It was one of those films that I always knew I should watch. Mm-hmm. Then I just never did. Yeah, it just works out that way. Everyone's got films like that, and I just happen to have way more than your average person. And so I started running on a treadmill. I'm waiting for the weather to actually warm up a little bit. Mm-hmm. So I was like, well, I'm doing this in front of a TV. Shove something on. So I actually ended up watching Blade Runner in two runnings, I should say. And this one I ended up watching because I was like, you know what? I enjoyed Blade Runner, and I knew that I would at the very least like the visuals of this film. So I was like, okay, I got it on Redbox, and I put it in, and I watched the first 40 minutes of it while running on a treadmill, and the last 2 hours of it upstairs on the 4K TV through my PlayStation 4. So I have the first 40 minutes of this film were at like maybe 1080p, and the rest was at a much higher quality, but I had to say I am glad that I watched this film, and I can fully understand why someone would have to wait until they're like, okay, the kids are at mother's house.
You need a good block of time, but I will say, I watched this opening weekend, and I have the luxury to do that a lot of the time, so I'm very aware of that, but it looked incredible on the big screen. So anyone that was able to do that can attest to that. The visuals, I might as well mention it now. Deakins won the Oscar for, which I still feel a little part of that was a Lifetime Achievement Award, as the Oscars has a habit of doing. But
after so many other nominations,
and non-wins. Even though I was really hoping for Greta Gerwig, even though I know that she was a kind of dark horse candidate for Lady Bird.
Right.
But yeah, Deakins won. I'm happy that he did. And then the other, big one here was the visual effects. Well, which, we are going to get into that probably for a while. I don't know if we want to do that now, but we can circle back on that. But damn, the effects in this movie.
Yeah, we'll definitely get to it.
So I guess overall feelings, like, how did you feel about Blade Runner 2049?
Well,
having just recently seen Blade Runner.
Yeah, having recently seen Blade Runner, and not having had then many years of nostalgia piled on top of it, I can honestly say that this film feels like a perfect continuation.
Correct. That is the correct answer. Yes. You could not tell that these were made by two different filmmakers, could you really?
No.
I mean, not to discredit Ridley or Denis, but I mean, it's like we just watched a little bit of a special features thing before we started recording, and Denis said, same canvas, different painter.
Yeah.
Which I think is very accurate.
Yeah. And this film, and we'll definitely get into it, but the visuals just so well matched to the original, and then added on with the fact that we now have way better technology than they had access to back then.
Yes.
So it just was a more polished version. I mean, you could even argue that this is what Blade Runner would be if it were made now. This is just how it felt to me. So
Nothing felt like try hard or too fan servicey or anything like that. There was nods, here and there, and obviously, but it just felt like you said. It just felt like we picked up 30 years later.
Yep.
It felt very much the same part of that world. Kind of, I would say on a larger extent, I've already mentioned it once, but how Force Awakens felt like a return to the Star Wars universe for me.
Yeah, a proper return.
A proper return, where I didn't have to burn things in a fire.
Very good space reference there.
Thank you. But yeah, this really, I was just so happy with it, because I want to make it very clear, I'm not a Blade Runner diehard fanboy, but I do love that movie.
Right.
It's one I saw later than I probably should have, but I did see probably for the first time probably 15 to 20 years ago.
Right.
And just remember, and that's one, for the average viewer, you may need to watch a few times to really get what's going on.
Yeah.
And really try to get your head around everything. But just on the surface level of looking at how beautiful everything is, how it's shot, just the way the advertising is shown, and we get that in 2049.
Yeah.
It just creates another world for you, and that's one of the things I always connect with. Is it is its own world, and it really, it's just it's at the top of the pyramid on sci-fi films, I think.
Yeah.
I think every sci-fi film wants to be a Blade Runner on some level.
Yeah, and also a wonderful nod to the old, noir detective films.
Yes. Yeah, because that's what both of these films, at their core, it is a detective story. And of course, a lot of meaty fill-in there.
Massive sci-fi elements.
Yeah, but that's really the core of the story, is this journey of a detective looking for the truth.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I just gonna get lost in my thoughts here, because I fucking love this movie.
I was thinking about it a little while ago today, but what do you think it would be like if this crew ended up making or remaking The Fifth Element? So it was slightly more.
I don't know. I
gritty.
see that's blasphemous.
No, I know. That's the thing. I enjoy the campiness and
because Besson is so different. Luc Besson is so different in what he does. With the really, the whole color palette's different.
Yes, very, very true, right?
So I wouldn't want to see that world, because I love the Fifth Element world being bright and poppy, and I wouldn't want to see a gritty world like that.
Yeah, I was thinking about it, and I was like, because the Fifth Element, it is an action film, but it's mostly just a fun film. Whereas I think if these guys made it, it would be a gritty action. It would almost be like. So it would be like the Predator style gritty version of The Fifth Element.
I would multi-pass on a gritty version of The Fifth Element. Alright. And that's my one. Alright, Paul's keeping track. Yeah. He allows me one. Oh, see, he's writing down notes to cut that out. Alright.
Yeah.
Alright, so let's run through a really quick cast list here, and then kind of get into some of our favorite bits.
Okay, well, you got Ryan Gosling as Kay or Joe, depending on what part of the film you're in.
Yes.
Harrison Ford returning as Rick Deckard. And you've got, and this is where my pronunciation will start to fail me a little bit.
It's Robin Wright.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Robin Wright as Lieutenant Joshi. Ava de Armas as Joy. Sylvia Hooks is what I'm going with as Love. And the only other one I've written down, but there are a couple of others we might mention, Jared Leto as Neander Wallace. And so those are kind of the main players, really.
Yeah.
In this.
And we'll get into a couple of cameos and large extra, or kind of featured extra roles, maybe.
Yeah. So, all right then. My first question to you is, obviously you've got Ryan Gosling as this Kay Joe character, but which character in this film was your favorite? Because I know everyone's supposed to like really be following Kay as you were following Deckard in the first one, and for the most part, Deckard's the most interesting character in Blade Runner, in my opinion.
Yes.
But I personally don't think that Kay is the most interesting character in this one. So I want to know what yours is first.
I was really kind of interested in following Joy's development.
Yeah.
The whole, because I mean it's a mirror obviously for what replicants are.
Yeah.
Autonomy and rights of hologram AI. We're getting into some Black Mirror stuff here too that we've talked about on those episodes. What rights do the digital have, if any?
Yeah. And also the final question as well is she really a full AI?
So, because that'd be VI, right?
Because it's virtual intelligence, and it's like everything she does is based around the core programming, and even though she seems to grow in the film and seems to be attached, the question is always like, is she really? Which is again kind of like the replicants in the first one. It's like, are they really not human? Like, they may not have been born, but are they? Like, and it's never fully answered in that one, and it's never fully answered in this one as to whether or not she was actually completely autonomous and has kind of grown beyond her programming, or if it's all her programming.
So I don't know, like, is she that good at parroting behavior, or was it authentic? Because I don't know, but if it's authentic, then we do get some character development there. As far as her struggling, the whole motivation jumping way ahead here of her getting this sex worker to sync with, is that done out of love, or just out of wanting him to have a physical interaction or connection with her? So I mean, like, it seems like that's real. It seems like those are things that she really feels like, and I mean, another major spoiler here, her last words are, "I love you."
Yeah, or I love you.
I love you. Yeah. So, I don't know. Call me old softy, but I want to believe it's real learning.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I really liked her character just as an idea in general, anyway, and then having the underlying question there of how much of it is programming, and is she fully AI? Like, I love that, like, that thing, and I know a lot of people, they don't even want to think down that way because, as you say, like, very much like it feels like she is like her own person, as it were, and like making her own decisions, and like have grown beyond just a simple companion that you buy and a piece of software. And speaking of, I think probably my favorite part in the film, just from like world building and the idea of it, is when she is out in the rain. We even joked about this a little bit when we were watching this stuff. Like, she's her own person, they're having a fairly intimate interaction, and then total pause. Because it's like, oh, you've got a message. And she's just stuck like that. And the utter crestfallen look on Kay's face when he's just like, oh yeah.
Because they play this game, and then being brought back to reality. But like, we have Do Not Disturb on our phones now. Like, don't you have like Do Not Disturb on your your home system, whatever.
Yeah.
Like I'm hanging out with my VI girlfriend right now, and no calls.
Yeah.
But apparently not.
Well,
in his line of work, I guess he's got to be on call. Yeah.
I was going to say, I think your police chief boss has the right to override.
But I want sexy time with my fake girlfriend.
Yeah, first sexy time. Come on.
Robin Wright, why do you got to be a buzzkill? Yeah, she is, and that's a very well played buzzkill.
Yes,
but,
very much.
Yeah. So was that your favorite, or
definitely. And I did want to bring up something that again before we recorded, we kind of talked about, which is how after his joy is destroyed by love, you then get the gigantic hologram joy, which you've...
Wait, no pun on his joy was destroyed by love, right?
No.
Okay. Although it was.
Yes, very much so. But yeah, I do think that when it comes to that interaction, because the joy that he had gave him the name Joe that he wanted to go with. And then this giant joy says, "You seem like a good Joe" to him. And then the question is, well, is it all joys call their users Joe as a nickname or something? Or is it you build up targeted advertising a la Facebook or something like that? Personally, what I think is that joys are actually targeted at the Blade Runner type replicants or replicants who don't have names. And joy is programmed to be able to identify replicants and Blade Runners and will call them Joe. And obviously, even though she's targeted at these characters, it's still just a blanket market campaign, and people that aren't replicants will also buy them. I'm sure there are many lonely males out there and lonely females that would be willing to have joy in their life. But yeah, I think that that's actually part of it. I would believe that Wallace would come up with joy as well as these new replicants as a way of keeping them the way they are. Like.
I wonder, yeah, if you can't. I wonder if they if you can't afford joy because if there's like a program called Meh, and it's just like a cigarette smoking girlfriend that's just is mean to you when you come home,
or just happy. And if someone says like, "Oh hey, hi. How's it going?" I had a good
passive
day.
aggressive model. Yeah. Did you have fun at work today? Yeah.
Well, I was sitting here.
Wait, I'm paying for this?
Hey, some people would.
I'd be rather be alone. Yeah. I'd like to give just kind of a quick 2-minute rundown of the plot here, if we can, just for because it can get a little muddled if you're not really closely paying attention. But essentially, we meet Kay as a Blade Runner. Once again, not familiar. That's who seeks out and retires in air quotes replicants. The old models, of replicants, the Nexus 8s or whatever I think they're called.
In the original film, it was the ones that are breaking away from what they're supposed to be doing, and
if you're up to date with your Westworld, the end of Westworld season 1.
Yes, there you go.
They're coming into their own, you could say.
Yes. Whereas in this one, it does seem to be that because they are all now programmed to basically just be relatively normal, and they're all programmed to serve, but there are some that are, if not kind of breaking out on their own, but they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, and then they're just doing other stuff as well. And so I guess those ones are not supposed to be doing it. So yeah, that's what our main character is going after.
So he and this is one of the small roles I wanted to bring up, but we meet him on this farm where he has found Sapper. What is his first name? That is his first name. Sapper Morton. Sorry. Which sounds, I don't know, like a Men in Black character more than.
It does.
But
it sounds like it would be Zach Morris's younger brother or something.
But played wonderfully by Dave Bautista.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got like 3 minutes of screen time, 5 maybe, probably more than that. Yeah, but it's great. Like he's you don't even think of him as his Guardians role at all.
No.
But yeah, I loved him in that. So we meet him doing this, and this kind of kicks off the whole film because there's a box that is found underneath this tree that has the bones of, we discover, a replicant. This turns out to be Sean Young's character, Rachel, from the first film. And we also discover that there was a child, which should not be possible.
Nope.
So she gave birth to this. So the whole movie is Kay is supposed to find this child and retire this child.
Yep. Because
per orders of Robin Wright's character.
Yes, because she realizes that if news of this gets out, basically the worst civil war that has ever happened in the history of mankind.
Yeah, won't be able to control them anymore. So that's pretty much just the beats of the movie as he picks up more clues to try to find who this child is. A couple of misdirections in there, well played, or some.
Yes, I must say, round about the halfway point in this film, I started looking at it and just going, please don't do what you seem to be aiming at.
I'm like, don't be that obvious with it. Yeah.
I was like, come on, you're Blade Runner, you're better than this.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd be interested to know how soon did you know who the child was? Was it upon meeting that person? I don't know why I'm being coy about it. We can say it.
Yeah, but no, I had to say that it didn't immediately cross my mind that she was the child. However, when it became more and more obvious that it wasn't Kay, it was like, like that was the immediate flip in my head. It was like they didn't end up saying it. It was even before the one replicant whose name I don't remember, but before she said she, indicating that it was a girl, and he was just kind of sitting there.
Frasier.
That was it, yeah. And like just before he meets her, I was sitting there just like, no, they're not going to do it. Like I had firmly made up my mind that this film was not going that way, and they were not going to be obvious. And I was like, wait a second, and I flashed back to it as it then does in the film, and I was like, yeah, no, that's actually I think probably the best way of doing that. Like I applaud the screenwriter.
Yeah, because they did it in such a way like where we first learn of his what we find out to be implanted memory of the wooden horse.
Yeah.
We don't know the other character yet.
Nope.
So our only conclusion is that Kay is the child.
Yep.
Because we've been given no other options, really. If you want to really try to think outside of what you're being shown, you might reach for those kind of straws, but you're very likely to just assume that he's the child. And Joy said she knew this all along, that I knew there was something different about you, and you're really human, or whatever, however she words it.
Yeah.
But then, of course, I was so, like you said, so relieved that things did not go that way. So I'm like, oh, come on. Don't take like the laziest like screenwriting trick and just ruin it.
And they even kind of had their cake and ate it too when they had that line of, we all wish that we were the child. Yeah. And it's like, it's like, it's a natural inclination for all of those that were implanted to be like, that's me. And though I do find it interesting that in all the time that this has been going on, only Kay has ever made it to the furnace. Like, I guess he's one of the only people that would have the authority to quite be out there. But
Morgan from The Walking Dead keeps them pretty busy in their child labor factory.
Yes.
So they probably don't get a lot of free time.
Yes, no, very much so.
Yeah. Good to see. Yeah, there's still no child labor laws in they're being skirted.
Yes, no.
Parts of this world. But hey, that's what dystopian futures are all about, right?
Exactly.
Suffering. I did want to, might as well get into it now. The visual effects in this movie. The first thing I remember watching this in the theater that I was really blown away by was Joy. Specifically where she starts to kind of blend a bit, not later on with Mackenzie Davis's character.
Right.
But when she's interacting with Kay.
And they're looking into the DNA of all the kids, or do
Yes.
you mean? Oh,
Yes, yeah. When they're at the DNA, yeah, and yeah, I just thought that was so well done.
Yeah. And can you imagine how difficult that must have been to stage as well?
Yeah.
Like, 'cause I mean, the question is, did they have the setup and then they ran it through once with Ryan Gosling and then once with Ava, or did they have it where it was him on this side and she did it on a green screen and they were together? Because I refuse to believe that the technology was that good that she did not film herself for that. But if it did, I mean, I can't actually tell. Like, it's that well done.
That well done, yeah. And it doesn't feel like off-putting, or like I guess it felt natural to the world. Is what I felt. Like, it didn't feel like, oh, they're really trying to go for like a big crazy effect here. Like, it didn't take me out of the narrative of what was happening. It just felt real and in the moment, and this is what this character would be doing, and it's completely normal for this situation.
And my favorite thing about the Joy and the hologram is the fact that he clearly doesn't have the top-of-the-line system. So there are many, 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 many times where it is perfectly obvious that she is a hologram. You can see through her.
See, I think that's just because, wasn't that in the first one, like, because I like dystopian films where that's always going to be the issue with technology. It's always going to have glitches.
Yeah.
So I don't even know if it was the top of the line thing. Like, even our best software now and stuff, it glitches and things go wrong with it. Video games, all this stuff. So I didn't know if they were just going for that.
Well, that's the thing. I don't know, because obviously the gigantic hologram advertisements, you can slightly see through those, but I believe that most of those are designed that way. Whereas she, at many times, appears completely solid, and then she'll move past something, and you'll see that you can just about see a railing behind her, or through her, or something like that. So I think that when it comes down to it, it is supposed to be...
just not have downloaded the newest patch.
Yes.
He just needs to, hasn't gotten around to it. A lot of us have waited a few weeks to update our phones. He's like, she's starting to glitch a little more. I need that new update.
And I think, as I said, my favourite scene is them up on the rooftop, and another part of that is when she's out in the rain, and so the rain goes through her, and then the software catches up so that she has simulated rain on her, and it really does look like the rain has started to hit her. So it's
oh my god, like every penny that was spent on the effects was a penny well spent.
Yes.
Every $1 million that was spent, I'm sure.
Every many million pennies.
Yes, yeah. But yeah, when she later syncs up with Mackenzie's character, I think it's Mariette, I believe is the character's name.
But I'm
doing this without looking, I believe that's right.
Yeah, I'm probably, because if you're going with like
Mariette,
if you're going with standard puns and stuff, obviously very, very close to Marionette. So.
Yeah, and Joy. Yes, we got we see what you're doing. But yeah, when she syncs up with her, that I was blown away.
Yeah, it was phenomenal.
Where you just see, because there's a moment where they're synced up, and then like, oh, it's her eyes. No, wait, it's her eyes. Like, wait, who's? It was so seamless. I just was awestruck.
Yeah, and there were several times where, obviously they sync up, but it's not a absolutely perfect sync up, because there's always either a slight delay or something like that, or the movement without thinking about it. And then you've got 4 sets of hands on Kay, and the fact that you're not able to tell which one's which.
Yeah, and it seems like kind of back to like where you said maybe parts would be transparent or not. Like, it seems like when there was a lot of movement, the sync could get a little out of whack. Like, not get too descriptive, but when they're removing their clothes differently.
Yeah.
One is zipping, one is pulling off. So that there's a lot of movement going on, but then it returns to the natural synchronization there. It was such a great scene. Like,
really well done.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't even have it yet. Like, just nerding out here on it.
Moving away slightly
Yes.
from the visuals then, obviously you are a big sound guy. What did you think about the soundtrack for this film and the score?
That was one of my big impressions of the first watch on this, and then even more so rewatching it. I just finished rewatching this morning for the second time as we record here in the afternoon. But yeah, it was, I believe, Zimmer, right?
I'm fairly certain it was. Yeah.
It's a Zimmer because it's very loud, simple but effective.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's I don't know. I don't have the adequate vocabulary. It's beautiful. it really kind of brought this film to another level, I thought.
Yeah, and just the sound editing in general as well.
Yeah, also nominated for Oscars. I forget who won, but sound editing and mixing both nominated.
Yeah, the sounds of the cars as they're flying along, just the general noises, background noises as well, and all this stuff. It so very well put this world together. Like there was, I think, no point when I was watching this that I felt like I was watching actors on a set or anything like that. It was just...
It's a completely immersive world, really. From that score, from the sound mixing, from the cinematography. It was immersive. And that's... I guess you have to be another back to the box office thing, because this is a slow burn of a movie.
Oh, yeah.
Even with that 2 hours 43, it's not a quick two. There are extraneous scenes. There are scenes of him walking from one end of the room to the other with zero cutting. It's like looking at a piano, looking at the, it takes its time.
Yeah.
And for one, I'm kind of happy because that's an older style of movie making, in my opinion. That slower pacing,
especially now, unfortunately.
Yeah, because we need you need something. They tell you screenwriters, you need something every 15 minutes. Pretty much something going on. But I love that it took its time with scenes. Let them develop. Let this world kind of just exist. If I can't sound too much like a pretentious a-hole, but I am self-aware. but I really appreciated that about this film.
Yeah. Well, and it probably helped that, like I said, it was such a perfect continuation of Blade Runner, and Blade Runner, the same as old school noir type film, it took its time. It just let the story happen at its own pace rather than cutting up the film to make the story happen quick.
There's like a 2 hour straight up action movie in there somewhere,
yeah.
But I wouldn't like that nearly as much.
No. I mean,
with something blowing up every 20 minutes or so.
Yeah, and there are many scenes that you could cut if you really wanted to trim this.
If you really wanted to lean,
you could completely cut out him meeting the 3 replicants outside the sex dungeon, basically. You could cut that scene out entirely and just have it that Joy hired someone to come down, much like in Her, when Scarlett Johansson's AI hires someone to come down. So, it many scenes could be trimmed or cut entirely, and you would have a tighter version of this film.
I think there's probably at least 20 minutes of establishing shots in this movie. Usually establishing shots are a few seconds you're in. These are like 1 minute, 2 minute establishing shots.
Yeah, you have the equivalent of when he's in his car going back to the police station. You have the equivalent of the Star Destroyer just going overhead and overhead and overhead.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I didn't mind it.
No, not at all.
Yeah, it's like I said, with the runtime, it's not what I'm going to always have time for. But when I'm starting it, I'm happy I bought it. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, and I do feel like this will be a film that I do want when my daughter is old enough, so it's going to be several years at this point, but I would like her to be able to sit down with me and watch Blade Runner and Blade Runner 2049 and not be like, oh, come on. Like, I feel like this is the style of film I want to come back, so that people that are going to be growing up and starting to work in Hollywood aren't then people that were brought up on Michael Bay or people like that, which I think we're going to start soon getting people that grew up with that style of film, the Michael Bay, very quick action all the time, everything's happening. And they're going to go into Hollywood, and I really hope they don't have any influence.
I mean, we're always going to have, as long as we have
money.
rich white dudes running the studios, they're always going to want their easy, quick hits.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's ever going to change. That they
I'm not saying
their
I want
$60
that.
million movie that's going to make $100, and that's a profit, and so they can make another poorly written, tropey action movie.
Well, yeah, I'm not saying I want them to disappear entirely, because like that's basically like me saying all cinema needs to be one way, and that's not right. But there has been a trend recently, over the past couple of decades, of short films either getting a little shorter or just really like the pacing is just quick.
So I think runtimes are increasing a lot.
They are now,
yeah,
which I like. Especially given, and I would say we talked about it a lot, but with Marvel and the comic book films.
It's tough to get one under 2 hours 10. They're all mostly like 2:20.
Yeah, and have they announced the runtime of Infinity War yet?
I don't know. Yeah,
because
I'm
that's
expecting
going
that one to be 2.5.
It's going to have to be. Yeah,
it's going to take an hour to introduce the characters. It's going to be the Avengers times 3. How long those character introductions took in the first Avengers movie.
Yeah, unless they do something incredibly silly where they just have Tony Stark doing a roll call of everyone, just like, that's strange. Yeah.
As long as they don't do it like they did Suicide Squad. Oh my god, worst character introductions of all time. Pretty close. They were bad. But let's steer this flying car back on course.
Yeah.
And was there something? I don't know. Was there an aspect you want to talk about next, or a character? I know there's a couple things, but I will toss to you first.
Well, I think at this point I definitely want to know, since obviously you were a fan of Blade Runner for so long before now, how did you feel about Deckard being back and how they brought him back?
I liked how, generally I liked how they brought him back. I was, the first time watching him, like, did they cut Harrison Ford out of this? I'm like, he was in all the trailers. He's like, but yeah, I think it's about an hour and a half, maybe hour 40
at least
before he's introduced. Yeah, I don't know the exact runtime, but it's very Force Awakens intro, kind of. Once again, I think third mention there.
Yeah.
Where, he's cast all in shadow, or, it's kind of the entrance, like, hey, it's Harrison Ford. Yeah. So there was that, which I guess you can't get around, because he does have that stature. Like the biggest action star ever. So he's allowed a grand entrance. Yeah. But yeah, I did like how they brought him back. I don't know. I don't know how else you could have done it. I was pretty happy with it. I didn't think it was messy or sloppily handled.
It felt natural.
They do have a biology, so I buy that he's older, got just a touch of a belly now. And
that's the thing as well. Is
they aren't robots.
Yeah, and for those of you that haven't seen Blade Runner but have seen this and are listening, whatever, the takeaway from most cuts of Blade Runner is that Deckard is definitely a replicant.
If you pay attention to the damn movie, it's proven that he's a replicant.
Exactly. Okay. And obviously within Blade Runner he doesn't know that he's a replicant, or at least we are fairly certain that he doesn't know that he's a replicant.
Yeah.
And I kind of assumed in this that by now he does know he's a replicant.
Yeah.
Even though, again, nothing is officially stated in the film,
well,
they don't
when they
say
first
to
meet,
him,
he said,
hey, are you a replicant?
Well, there's an acknowledgement, because Kay says, I know, I'm sorry, Kay's, when they have their little standoff upstairs before they get into the kind of fighting, he says, I'm not here to bring you in.
Yeah.
And that's an acknowledgement that this is my job to bring you, to kill replicants.
Yeah.
Or to bring them in to be interrogated and then killed or whatever. Yeah. But so that's an acknowledgement, and he's like, why would you bring, otherwise he'd say, why would you want to bring me in? What am I doing? I'm just an old man living in a Vegas hotel or what? Yeah.
Exactly. But it is one of the things that if you're more focused on the fact that they got Harrison Ford back, you might not be paying attention to that line. So it can be something that will fly right by you and you won't get it. And I like that I liked in the Blade Runner. So far, I've only seen the original theatrical cut of Blade Runner, so I do need to go back and watch the final cut. But yeah, I like that they had that kind of looming over unsaid.
Yeah.
And it's up to you to pick up all the pieces. So in this one, again, they didn't feel the need to directly say, like, they didn't have Kay ask him, like, you're a replicant, how did you have a child or anything. It's just like, he knows he's a replicant. We know he had a child, and it's just like, that's the world. We don't care about that. We're still just trying to find.
Well, it does what so many movies fail to do, is treat the audience with a base level of intelligence. To not overly have so much exposition that it's just washes over you, and every little thing has to be explained. You're allowed to let the movie explain things later on down the line. You're allowed to not have them explained. Yeah. And figure it out yourself and take whatever conclusion you want from that interaction or whatever the movie's trying to tell you. But it doesn't dumb it down. We talked about some character names being kind of a bit on the nose. But just a little bit. Other than that, very, I think, sophisticated storytelling.
I mean, there is one bit in the film that is literal walking exposition, and that's when he goes to find the records, and the record keeper is just being like, so remember that blackout? 10 years ago there was a blackout, all data gone, poof, oh well, if only we'd had more paper. Anyway, here's this thing you came to find. It's like really?
It's an odd thing for me to be talking about right now, isn't it?
It's like, that would be like me just walking along and be like, hey, do you remember 10 years ago when there was a big bicycle race? Yeah, I like that bicycle race. Anyway, moving on.
Sometimes I just say things to have words fall out of my mouth. I don't know why.
Yeah, I mean, or it would be exactly the same as, let's say the sun changed colour 20 years ago, and you're walking down a library with someone, and they go, remember where you were when the sun changed colour? Yeah. Anyway, here's Philip K. Dick for you. Right?
So sorry for this bit of a tangent, but have you seen the movie Thank You for Smoking?
I have not. That is Aaron Eckhart, right?
It's so. But there's it's like the gun lobby, the tobacco lobby, or whatever. But there's a moment where they want to make a movie and bring cigarette smoking back to films,
right?
And they want it in space. I think it's Brad Pitt or whoever they say, and they're like, the studio has like, but wouldn't they, like, you can't smoke in space, or that we just put, thank God we invented the blah blah blah. That's like one of my films do it all the time. You have just this line of chunky exposition here, or clunky rather. Yeah. And that explains it. Moving on.
Yeah, pretty much.
But we don't get a lot of that in this movie, thankfully.
Like I said, and like you said, it's so nice to have a film that it exists, the world exists, and there's no need for one character to have either in voiceover or in background conversation with someone else, just like, when this happened, I did this, and then that'll fill you in. It's like, no, it is. Yeah. And that's the type of thing. Like, that's actually one of the things I like about Altered Carbon, the Netflix show. It has a little more exposition than this film does, but most of the time it is just like, this is just kind of what the world is, and you have to take it. Like, that's what it is. They don't explain exactly how everything works, and there's clear bits and pieces that they put in that if they make a second season they can pick up on and carry on from there, which actually slightly leads on to a question that I had for you, which is, given the end of this film, do you think they're going to make another one? I don't know if I want one.
I think they could, but I don't want it.
Yeah, or wait 30 years again, and it's another time jump. Like, maybe make these every 30 years.
I guarantee you won't give a shit in 30 years if they make another one. So
probably not. But someone in your family that hasn't been born yet, they might really enjoy Blade Runner.
But it's also kind of tying to our franchise, mission statement of more original films.
Yeah.
Just because something's great, that's kind of the American attitude, more.
Yeah.
we don't know. How about more great things? It doesn't need to be that exact thing again.
Yes.
So I'm very happy this film was made. I'm still kind of amazed it was. I think it had so many things against it, like I previously stated.
Yeah.
So happy it was. I mean, obviously, yes, it had big studios, big stars. This isn't an indie darling. I'm not trying to make that case. No. But yeah, I'm very happy it got made. But I don't want him to. No, like you really like this could have gone so poorly, and Denis Villeneuve could have been hated forever for this, and is, I'm sure, by a small subset of the diehard Blade Runner fans. But by and large, I think it was well received by film fans, by critics. Not that I'm Rotten Tomatoes whore or anything, but it's done very well on there on Metascore. So I think it's objectively a good film. Yeah. Some could say good, decent. I would say great. Mm-hmm. I don't want to roll those dice again.
No, yeah, I do think that what probably worked for this film was it's been so long since the last one. Obviously, Harrison Ford was still alive, so it's a big boon there. And it clearly was made by people that loved the first one so much and wanted to make a genuine sequel to it. So the thing's going to be... I wouldn't mind if, in 30 years' time they make another one, because I do think that when it comes to, as you said, what our friend Friday is trying to point out, that it's just sequel after sequel after sequel after sequel, and the quality goes downhill immediately if you start doing that. Whereas I'm fine with having spiritual successors.
Let the culture change a bit. Yeah. Let technology change. Because, like they said in some of the special features, like the character of Joy could not have existed in 83, 84?
I'd say. I'm not too sure. I mean,
I'm sorry, 82. Yeah. Older. Yeah. So I was off by a year on my first guess, but. Yeah, so that character couldn't exist. So who even knows what filmmaking is going to be in 30 years?
Yeah.
It could be a completely different experience. I hope there's still standard shot, not too crazy futuristic stuff going on, but...
maybe the medium it's recorded on might change, but... Mm-hmm.
But we're always going to be telling stories, so... but yeah, let the culture shift a little, and then see
have an updated take on it.
Yeah, because we're always interested. I think that's why so many people love dystopian stories. Yeah, because we want to imagine where we're going as a species.
Yeah, and it is always interesting. So it really is always interesting to me because there's almost never a non-utopian / dystopian future. It's pretty much never just exactly the same. There's always something has happened which makes it either everything is great, but is it? Or everything is terrible, but...
Yeah, everything is great for a few, but mostly everything is awful.
Yeah, I mean, you either have utterly dystopian, utterly utopian, or... the richer utopian and the poorer dystopian.
You get the models like Elysium, where you get like the rich people planet or whatever. The Portuguese series 3%, which is fantastic. Everyone should be watching that on Netflix. Where they get rewarded. The small percentage get the utopian society. Yeah. The other people get the dystopian society.
Yeah, and the Altered Carbon's the same. Like the people that have all the money, they live in giant buildings above the cloud line in the sun, and they're so happy and they can do anything they want. Everyone else lives at ground level, and they're just living day to day and surviving. Like that's basically how that goes.
And I don't know if this is actually even true dystopian, because there is a society still existing. There is tech. There is, but but it at least gives the feeling that things aren't super great for most people.
No,
that life is a slog. Well, not that it isn't now, but
even more so.
So I don't know if it's a true dystopian in that sense, but
I would say it is, because it feels like a dystopian future, regardless of how much the technology has come forward. It really is just the planet is definitely seen as worse off than it was in Blade Runner. So things are getting worse. And
through the color palette and through everything, like things are dark and grimy.
Yeah, Neander Wallace, he has solved world hunger by creating really,
so we do get something that something
food.
catastrophic was going on with global starvation.
Yeah. But now, even though he's solved the problem, everyone is basically just eating protein/meat byproducts type stuff, and that's their food, unless they're rich enough to be able to, I guess, food print something.
I don't know, yeah, better than the food and Snowpiercer. You haven't heard of that. Bug bars.
No Soylent Green running around in the place.
But you did bring up Neander. Do you want to talk about him real quick? A couple points and then we'll wrap up, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, obviously, Neander Wallace, played by Jared Leto, and I did mention to you a little earlier that the man is a bloody chameleon. Like every
I'm looking very forward to this part of the conversation.
Every single time I've seen him in something, he has looked so different. I've not seen him in a huge number of things, so I am.
He can look
going
different, yeah.
But yeah, he like obviously him in this, him as the Joker in Suicide Squad, him in Dallas Buyers Club, like all this. Like I look at him in all of these, and it's just he is effectively changing not only his face but kind of his body as well. Like I mean, he's a slender person. But, I mean, he was, slender to the point of skeletal in Dallas Buyers Club. He definitely had some muscle as the Joker in Suicide Squad. And he was very almost Christian Bale in Equilibrium-esque in this one. As just like a sort of, like just a standard well-to-do businessman type thing. So it was really cool to see him. And I enjoyed his character. But I don't know. I guess I didn't understand him enough to fully get him.
Yeah. So this is where we are going to be miles apart here, because I cannot stand Jared Leto. I absolutely despise him as
Fair
a human. And I have before mentioned that, I find him to be exhausting and pretentious. In every interview I've ever seen of him, his band can suck an egg. And like I said, yes, I can come off that way too when I talk about films and things I love like that. But I don't know. I have not really enjoyed him truly since like Fight Club. Okay. And that was like 1998.
Yes, it was.
And that was because he was getting his ass kicked. So even then, because Ed Norton's like, I just felt like destroying something beautiful. I don't know. And then the other thing that really kills it for me, knowing that David Bowie could have been in this role.
Did not know that.
Denis Villeneuve was seeking out David Bowie, but he died before. And you know he would have done this movie.
Bowie
it is the Bowiest of Bowie performances. And I mean, he would have killed it in this. And knowing that, I cannot look at Jared Leto like I could have had Bowie.
Fair enough.
I hate you so much. And yeah, some of that is misplaced, but still, I want to impress upon everyone how much I do not like Jared Leto. I was just very happy. My friend and I talked about it. Like, his role was small, so it did not ruin this for me. No. If it was a more fleshed out role where he was popping up every 20 minutes, half hour, no. But it's like he has like 3 key scenes, really.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. He handles it on his own. I don't think the story or plot suffers or anything because of it. His character, I don't know, is just kind of
Kinda.
Yeah.
I mean, personally, I think, and this is a bit of a wild out there thing, but I think if they'd have got someone like Hugo Weaving to do it, like, obviously no one would ever beat Bowie, but Hugo Weaving would be a slightly different take on it, but I think he has that level of creepiness to him.
See, I think he's already explored that too much with Agent Smith.
Kinda, but that's the thing. I think it would be easy for him to do, and you wouldn't have the problem of it being Jared Leto. So,
yeah, I don't know. But yeah, like I said, didn't ruin it for me.
No, I fully understand where you're coming from with that, and like as much as I was okay with him as a character, as I was saying, I didn't connect in any way with his character whatsoever, and it was almost as if they needed a little bit extra, and I know it's odd to say this, but a little bit extra exposition about him for me to have been able to understand it more. Because it's like, okay, so he bought the Tyrell Corporation and he created this stuff, and now he is possibly attempting to create more replicants so that he can take over the world, maybe?
Maybe, sort of, possibly.
It's sort of hinted at, but not expressly said. But then also he might actually just want what's best for humans, maybe? Like, it's, like his character is so kind of bland in that respect that it's difficult to get a read on him, which might be the idea.
Yeah.
But I would have preferred just a little more meatiness to his role so that I could understand him better. Like, I think that is my biggest
I was
takeaway.
fine with him being somewhat one-dimensional. I think that's kind of what the plot needed for the character.
Yeah.
But, because, I mean, we were already at 2 hours 43. I don't know how much more, you want there, but, or cut down on some of those establishing shots or whatever, but... I don't know. I just wanted to see someone else in that role. But it's a minor gripe.
Well, that's the thing.
He didn't ruin things for me.
No, his character is actually my biggest negative about the film. And that's kind of saying something. Like that it's just...
and I don't know why the contacts seemed an odd choice, too, for the character.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of assumed that he is blind, right?
Yeah,
because that's what I took away. Because when he's not using the weird floaty camera thing, he genuinely seems blind. Like he's even reaching out and touching people's faces. Now it could all be an act, but again, we didn't get anything.
But all of that just seemed like if you're not going to kind of flesh out the character more, I don't know, just the odd peculiarities, but. I don't know anything. I knew I wasn't going to get to all my notes here, but with anything else, I did want to just briefly mention the Sean Young effect. Yeah, the actual like the effects of the young Sean Young. I don't know, because we're seeing that more and more with like Rogue One, and Guardians 2 with Kurt Russell, and lots of examples. But I thought it looked pretty great. I heard some people had some gripes with it, and then the other part of that is like, okay, so you're a billionaire, whatever, trillionaire, you have all this tech, you're not going to know her correct eye color. That seems like a glaring oversight.
Yeah, but especially with all of the information that Tyrell apparently keeps on everything.
I know, on every you're like, green, it wasn't even close. It wasn't like green or blue, like brown. Brown instead of green eye. Yeah, like okay.
Yeah, I kind of was assuming until they got the gun out that she was going to be a full hologram, that so well done hologram, because he wasn't going to use up another replicant to recreate her, but obviously too much money and not enough brains. Like it's
I thought it was really cool to just like, oh yeah, Sean Young, or Sean Young circa Blade Runner 1982.
Yeah. And the only other character that we haven't really gone into at all, and I don't know if we'll have too much to say about it, but is Love.
Yes.
I enjoyed her character, and really her motivation was almost as thin as Wallace's, which is just like, I am the best replicant.
I'm the best one! It was actually one of her lines.
Yeah.
I'm the best one.
One of her final lines. It might have been a final line, actually.
Other than...
Which I must say, surely, if you were making replicants that were going to be, basically doing all of the hard work, being in inhospitable locations, doing all that stuff, surely the necessity of breathing is pointless. Like, just I know they're supposed to recreate humans and be like humans.
I think their biology is very similar.
Yeah, pretty much. But it's like, sure, just make it that you don't actually need oxygen, and then you're never going to have someone you're not going to have 20 of them die in a gas leak. You're not going to which is what the entire point of replicants is, that you don't lose the workforce.
Slave labor, yes. We get the dog metaphor quite a bit through this movie. They're what dogs are to us. They're companions and service animals, essentially.
So that was it. I genuinely thought there would be a final thing where he ended up either just shooting her or like smashing her head against something, like so he holds her under the water, and that's like the final way he gets rid of her. I assume there would be one last sort of comeback from that, where it's finally revealed that nope, she doesn't need to breathe. But,
she was a little T-1000, or
just a little bit.
Just like keep rising up again. But yeah, here we get, I guess, an ironic name for a character because she was mostly hate.
I think that's
it's
where
like
they were
the
going.
big dude named Tiny. Yeah. And then I did want to shout out one other cameo, and that was Barkhad Abdi. I think I'm getting his name right.
Probably.
And that he came to fame in Captain Phillips as the Somali pirate that takes over. Yeah, I'm the captain now.
Yeah.
And he's just so great. I'm so happy with his that story of how he's discovered and stuff. And I don't know. I just love him. And it was so great to see him pop up in this because I had no idea.
Yeah.
Obviously, that he was in this until the first time I saw it.
Yeah, same here. And wonderful to see Edward James almost back as well.
Yeah, because it took me a second to even recognize him the first time out. I'm like, what is that? Oh, yeah, I think he is that? And we're like, yeah, I think he is.
Yeah, and it's interesting as well because I did just a little bit of research, and in the book, because there's a sequel book not written by Philip K. Dick, but written with permission from Philip K. Dick, where his character is dead, like died on the duty. So the fact that they were just like, now let's just have him back. Like, yeah, we can get him back in there. So I liked seeing him for his just one scene. It was a nice little cameo.
Okay. I need to mention this, and then I promise we can wrap up because I do full disclosure, need to use the restroom. But so Joy gets Mariette for Kay so he can have this physical and intimate encounter. During that, or the next morning or whatever, Mariette plants a tracker on Kay. That is entirely dependent upon Joy seeking her out, right? How else was she going to go through with that plan?
Yeah,
And then I have another issue with this too, because Freyja, whatever the replicant that's been a member of the Resistance for the Revolution, whatever you want to call it, for a long time, that was buddies with Rachel and all that in the original Blade Runner days. She's kind of was throwing shade on Kay, saying you brought Wallace to Deckard.
Yeah.
No, Mariette brought Wallace to Deckard. She's the one that planted the damn thing. So what is? I don't understand her motivation. Was she a double agent? What is going on with Mariette?
Well, I don't know. I think
I don't know. That confused me.
I think the thing here is that obviously, if we're going based on the logic presented to us in the film, obviously Mariette has been connected to the Resistance for a while. Like she is someone that works in this pleasure place, but she is also part of the Resistance. So she finds Kay, and I guess the question is, has Kay been on the Resistance radar for a while? And so obviously her other replicant friends are like, oh, don't go near him, he's a Blade Runner. And she's like, oh no, that's fine. Do you think she was trying to get close to him knowing that the companion AI, whatever, would end up seeking her out? Or do you think she was trying to get close to him just in general to try and plant something, didn't manage it, and then does it the next time?
Or the other thing is that Fraser was just using that as leverage, even though she knows it was Mariette that brought Wallace to Deckard, and because she ultimately wants Kate to kill Deckard so that he's not a liability for the child.
Yeah, and my biggest problem with the Resistance side of things is that they obviously hid the child, and they just don't want to be discovered. It's like, what is your plan? Like they don't really give you a plan. They're just the Resistance.
We'll find out in 30 years, Paul.
I guess.
So, that might be a good place to end things.
Yeah. And when they eventually do Blade Runner, what'll it be?
2079.
Well, I mean, technically, it's been 30. Well, it was 30. 36. It was 35 years when
I'm 36. This movie came out. The year I was born. So I'm an old man.
So yeah, it'll be Blade Runner 2085 or whatever.
Yeah.
So when that comes out,
we
maybe
get
we'll
Harrison
find
Ford
out.
as a clone.
Yes.
All right. Anyway, parting words. I'm good.
I don't think so. I think we don't even really need to rate this one. I mean, it's obvious we both really enjoyed
absolutely.
it. And I think anyone that really liked Blade Runner and that hasn't seen it, and we haven't really spoiled it too much, so that's kind of a good one. But yeah, that still wants to just watch it. Number one, it's just a visually stunning film. So just watch it.
Even if you can't connect on anything else, you're gonna enjoy the pretty images.
Yes, lots of pretty images. And I'm sure, you could even argue, if you're a red-blooded male, there's plenty for you to see here.
There you go.
I mean,
yes,
not that
there's
that's
not
actually,
enough for those guys.
Yeah,
no.
not that it's important in the slightest, but there you go.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get people to see this now. So. But yes, yeah, do go see the film. If you've already seen this film, watch it again in a couple of months when you've given yourself a 3 hour
and if
window.
there's people out there that loved Blade Runner but didn't like this, I'd like to just have a kind of what was your reasoning? What could they have done?
Yeah, I really
better?
Want to
what
hear.
would satisfy you?
I know, come on, man.
But other than that, at Blokebusters on Twitter, hit us up.
Yeah, and or on Instagram. But obviously, by the time this episode's out, it'll be on there. So do find it there, or Facebook, or you can email us blokebusterpodcast@gmail.com if you really want to have a nice long form conversation with us. But yeah, just get a hold of us. We're happy to talk with you pretty much about anything, I think. So there you go.
Yeah.
So I think with all of that being said, I've been Paul.
I've been Brian.
And I'll see you next time.
Sounds good.
In case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Hang on a minute, lads. I've got a great idea.
Louis, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.